this is exercise video number 27, and for my exercise today, I just did a hiking trail. And to relate that activity back to what we're learning right now in XPhys, so during that exercise, my working muscles, so like my legs, my hamstrings, my quads, my gastroc, soleus, all of those muscles needed oxygen in order for me to do bioenergetics and sustain that exercise, because as we know, we use oxygen in that third proton pump in the electron transport chain. And so whenever oxygen was delivered to my tissues, because the partial pressure of oxygen was low because it was being used, and so in my working muscle I had an accumulation of hydrogen ions, and so my pH was low, and I had an accumulation of CO2 as well, and so all of that needs to leave my muscle in order to stabilize my pH, because ultimately if it stays there, then it just doesn't allow my muscle to forcibly contract the way that it should be able to. And so in my capillaries, the hydrogen ions and the CO2 go out onto a red blood cell, and so CO2 is dissolved in water, and then that forms carbonic acid, and then carbonic acid, and that is via carbonic anhydrase, and then carbonic acid is turned into bicarbonate and hydrogen, and that hydrogen goes onto hemoglobin and forces oxygen off so that oxygen can go into my tissues. And so that lowers the percent saturation of hemoglobin, because you don't want your hemoglobin to be saturated whenever you need it in your muscle. And so oxygen goes into my tissue, hydrogen ions and CO2 go into the capillaries, and that bicarbonate that was produced goes out into my bloodstream, and then goes up into my superior and inferior vena cava, and then into my right atrium, and then the right ventricle, and then eventually out to the pulmonary artery, to the lungs, and then in the lungs, that bicarbonate goes in and combines with hydrogen to form carbonic acid, and then carbonic acid is turned into CO2 and H2O, and then eventually I was expiring that CO2 and H2O, and that was what I was breathing out.